It is another edition of the Dirty Laundry Game Worn Hockey Podcast, episode 7, I believe. I guess I should write this number down somewhere. As you can see by the Ricky Bobby picture, no, we've not switched to NASCAR, but we are talking about ads. We're not long until the beginning of the preseason and in the regular season, and some of the teams are going to have ads on the jerseys, and boy, when they announced that, people went nuts. Got a nice roundtable group here. Two veterans now. They've been on multiple shows and one brand new one. We have Paul Rank, Wade Hampton, and then Justin Walden joining us for the first time. Justin has some other backgrounds, I think, that will help us get through this discussion. Good evening, gentlemen. How we doing?
Good evening.
So,
Good evening.
So it's when the NHL announced this, and I guess we'll go back a step. Was we had COVID, as everybody know, the pandemic came in, NHL went finally first shut down, went to the bubble, and they decided, crap, we've lost a lot of money. We got to make some revenue somehow. Let's sell ads on jerseys, on helmets. Some people flipped out over that because that it's going to look terrible. You start even at that point, people were saying it's going to look like Europe jerseys or a NASCAR race car, whatever it's going to be. And I believe every team had ads on their helmets. I don't think there's any that didn't, because that was the way they were going to make revenue. When you couldn't have anybody, especially early on, you couldn't have anybody on the arenas, or they were playing in a bubble. That's where they could make some of their money from. When they did that, they estimated that, because again, none of this was public exactly how much they sold those ads for. $5 to $10 million were estimated to be generated per team, which definitely helps. Justin, you have a background in some of this stuff with marketing and that. What do you think? Or when they thought, when they came up with the idea?
We were coming out of COVID. I think so. My background is, I'm an associate professor of communication, and one of the areas that I teach in is in strategic communication and marketing. And so I take a very 30,000-foot level on this. And the league, I think, just recorded record profits this year. But coming out of COVID with things being so unstable, it made sense. We'll get into the reaction among collectors, and I use that in quotation marks, because I think it's been rather amusing to see some of the freak out in the various Facebook groups about it. So I understand that why the NHL is doing it. I think some of the reaction about jerseys is a little harsh. So I just with COVID, no one knew what was going to happen, and not having those gate receipts, it was crushing for the league. But you see how quickly the NHL has started to turn the page. So that alone, the fact that they've turned such strong numbers this year, gives me hope that the advertising apocalypse on jerseys is not necessarily going to come. I don't think it's going to get out of hand.
Now, before we dive too much deeper into this, I want to get both Paul and Wade. I will get your guys' initial takes when you heard of it, current thoughts, and then we'll dig into this more. Paul, we'll give it to you first.
So used to AHL jerseys having the ads on them, AHL helmets having the ads. I actually liked having the ads on the NHL helmets this year, because at the Shark sale, we could tell which helmets were worn this past season, especially when they have 3, 4, or 5 years worth of gear available. As for jerseys, as long as it's not too obtrusive, and it doesn't go the way of Germany, Sweden, Russia, as we'll see, a lot of those ones which are more ads than anything else, I'm perfectly fine with a small ad on it. It doesn't bother me in the least. But I know others have strongly different opinions on that.
Wade, what are your initial thoughts?
I mean, same for me. When the helmets happened, everybody kind of freaked out. And my thought process on it was it's not that bad. And what I've seen so far, most of the jersey ads are very small. They're put on there correctly. I mean, speaking for the Blues one, they're color coordinated to the jerseys, which I think is great. I mean, again, we always talk about patches and different things like that. If anything, most of these contracts are for a few years. So every few years, you might get a different ad on the jersey, or they may change the logo of the ad on the jersey. So again, it's something that will become collectible for them, in my opinion. And like Paul said, as long as they're not, over the top and the jerseys aren't covered in them, I'm not really bothered by it at all. There were some collectors who were like, oh, I'm done collecting because of this. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, that's your choice, but a little over the top.
And we'll check with those collectors about 3 months into the season when the first sets have come out from some of the teams and see if that's still the case. Some of the other numbers out there, because a lot of our teams in the NBA started in 2017, so way pre-pandemic. The total estimate to this point is $225 million in revenue. Of course, the NBA has a huge following, everything else. Major League Baseball this year was the MLB's part of the CBA agreement gave the rights for the teams to sell sleeve patches beginning in the 2023 season, which they estimate 8 to 10 million per team. Again, some of the contracts of stuff they're doing, that's not a drop in the bucket. The NFL's been doing ads on practice jerseys since 2009. It's not happened yet in their game day stuff, but all the writers in that field that it's headed that direction, especially when all the other major leagues are now doing it in some form or fashion. And again, none of the teams that do it, be it MLB, NBA, does it look gaudy, bad. And I think the size of the NHL ones is 3x3 max. And the teams that are, and I did some deep dives, Justin, you said you did as well. There's only 6 teams that I could come up with that actually currently have a deal in place. Some shortly after the NHL said it was going to be out there, and then the Wild got in a little bit later. Let me pull the logos up that I've got here. A good mix of them. Let's see here.
I know you said 6 teams, but don't some of those teams only have them on their home?
Yeah, and that's some of that was determined, and of course I'm always fighting with my Zoom stuff to share everything here, but there we go. Blow these up full screen. Yes, like in the case of this one, the Washington Capitals, their ad is the Caesar Sportsbook, and you guys are seeing this, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
The reason, and I was reading through these, the reason it's like that is it's both Washington Capitals, the Vegas Golden Knights are both because they're using a gambling for their stuff. They don't want to go to cities, or I think it was kind of NHL made the rule. They don't want to go to cities that have or states where gambling is not legal, and take that logo or take that ad with them. So they will sell. And neither of the teams that I have found yet have sold them. They will sell the away jerseys with a different sponsor. So then you can kind of almost double dip a little bit. Minnesota Wild, TRIA, which is a huge hospital medical name there.
And I think, isn't the Wild's practice arena named TRIA Arena?
That sounds right. Let's see. There's the Columbus Blue Jackets with Safe Light. So both their home and aways have that. The Pittsburgh Penguins home jersey have, and I don't have a picture of that for some reason. I'm not sure where that one went to. Both of theirs they only have home. It's Highmark for their home jerseys. And then the St. Louis Blues for all their jerseys, be it their home, away, or thirds, all have their Stiefel. And let me get theirs up there. I thought for some reason I had it up, and of course things didn't get there. There's the Blues with Stiefel. And one thing I like about some of these, because some are using the square patch and others have actually followed the lettering, and I appreciate that, because it makes it look, I think it makes it look a little bit nicer. And also, thanks to Sports Logo, they'd grabbed a lot of these. I was able to pull them from their site to use. So thank you to them. So, I mean, I think if it follows the lettering, that helps a lot. because it blends into the jersey more, like on the Pittsburgh Penguin one, Highmark, which is basically like a branch of Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's just a square. It looks like an AHL level patch. It looks garbage. And maybe by the time we hit the season, it'll be better, and they just didn't rush the job. So as I jump through these, thoughts on any of those issues, or does it make sense how they did it with the like I said, I was a little surprised about the gambling, but it does make sense. I don't think any of them look bad. Do you?
No, I liked all.
I mean, they don't look too bad, and I, again, recognizing the call of everyone, some being worried that it's going to get gaudy. They look fine. I mean, I did. From a design perspective, though, I am having a little bit of a second thought, because you look at the Wild, such a clean, such a crisp jersey on both the home and away, and then you look at it, it's like, well, it doesn't fit as well as St. Louis's, and even Washington's with the white against the red. So there's a part of me that, like, if I saw a logo on like a Bruins jersey or a Jets jersey, I'm very much, I'm rational about this, but I do see it does change the look a little bit. You have to acknowledge that.
But it does. But don't you also think that once we get a little used to it, it won't be as big of a deal?
Absolutely.
I mean, look at baseball. For the longest time, baseball wasn't allowed to have any logo on anything, their hats or their jerseys. Now, if you watch a Major League Baseball game, they've all got a Nike swoosh. I mean, the hats all have the New Era logo. I remember when that first happened as a baseball fan, I was kind of like, wow, that's weird. And now, a few years into it, you hardly notice it because it's just something you're used to. And I kind of feel like the patches for the hockey jerseys, as long as it just stays the way it is, will just be something that we end up getting used to. I mean, if that makes any sense.
And some of the complaints I've heard is like the original 6 ones. Everybody, no, we can't touch those. We can't put any ads on them. But again, if you're generating $10-15 million a year,
sure,
I don't care who you are. The team's going to go, we need that cash. I
mean, if you're one of those original 6 teams, and suddenly you've got a star player who you think is maybe unattainable in the cap, or the money's tight, does that suddenly make your team a little deeper, or you're able to keep a player at some level if that's revenue for the franchise? I mean, it's hard to say, oh, I don't want that patch, but Pasternak's got to go.
No,
that's fine with me.
I can't be talking to 2 Blues fans over this.
So, Paul, like Paul and Justin, what type sponsors do you think your guys' teams would end up going with? And are you surprised they haven't picked or announced somebody yet?
That's a tough one. I mean, and having 2 NHL teams for me, Red Wings being first, I have no idea what they're going to do. I know they will do better than the Amway practice patch. They have to. They can't do worse.
Little Caesars patch, little pizza patch on there.
Oh God,
that'll hurt.
Please no. That would be hideous. But yeah, and it's the argument there with the old, simple, classic, original 6 jerseys. What do you want to muddy it up with? And yes, I do think if you put the Little Caesars guy on there, it will not go over well. So I have no idea what the Red Wings will go with. As for the Sharks, you have to remember when the Worcester Sharks, and I know I'm mispronouncing it, moved here from Massachusetts, they changed names to the Barracuda. And it wasn't the fish, it was the company, Barracuda Networks. We actually had a company sponsor an entire team. And the original logo had the Barracuda Networks thing in the background. So as for what the Sharks will do, I don't have any inside knowledge on it, and nothing will surprise me from that organization. Hope that was okay. So.
And so, I'm somewhat of an odd collector. My diehard team is the Bruins, and yeah, I think I've got like one Bruins gamer, and the rest I just enjoy just game worn jerseys aesthetically so much more. You know, with the Bruins, you have to be thinking Dunkin' Donuts, right? I mean, you know, Pasta's already got a very clever ad spot. You know, it's a national brand that has a really strong regional connection. But if Bruins are going that way, then you got to put Timmy Hortons on the Jets jerseys, right? Or something that I have no idea what they will end up potentially putting on Winnipeg. But they're, you know, it's an interesting dynamic with Canadian teams and the financial, you know, differences are that exist between, you know, a team in Winnipeg versus attracting free agents to, you know, tax-free US states. So, you know, I will be out of this interested to see how the Vancouvers, how the Ottawas go, to see to what degree they embrace this, if only because of the revenue issue. So
And honestly, I thought they would be one of the first ones that would jump on it for that reason, because I believe they were some of the teams that took the biggest hits with going into the bubble, and it took them so much longer before they allowed fans into the stands compared to those U.S. markets, and especially the smaller market teams. Even U.S. is of course Arizona has their own issue with a 5,000 seat arena, but you think they would be one of the teams jumping on this too? Let's going, hey, but maybe there's nobody that wants to write that kind of check. But I mean, again, I don't know. I've not talked to any of these teams. I don't know anybody in the levels of this
Well,
to reach out to.
Arizona's also now playing in the Mullet Arena, so that's going to be fun. Oh, I think they've already played with the logo a little bit and are having some fun with that comedy in itself.
Serious in the front, party in the back.
there's nothing serious about the Coyotes. Sorry.
Well, no. Yeah, though at least should be guaranteed sellouts every night. They won't hear that when they get their new arena, but at least it'll give them a year or two of that.
So
I think you're going to see a lot of these franchises go with whoever, and I'm sure we're not thinking about it city to city, but I think you're going to see a lot of whoever their major sponsors are will jump on that. You know, whoever named their building, whoever's one of their probably top 5, you know, money giving sponsors will probably in a lot of those cities get the opportunity for the rights if it doesn't pop off to somebody out of that genre. But you have to assume that they're going to look to those people first. You know, their standard bearer every year supporters who advertise in the buildings.
And a lot of teams are keeping the helmet advertising too, so they're double dipping really. And what's been interesting is the contracts and stuff have all been very hush hush. There's nobody out front saying this is how much this people paid or this is how much. It's all very guesses. And again, you can look at marketing. Justin, you're the expert in this area. Kind of look at what the market bears for this stuff.
Well, and you know, some of the concerns that I've heard is, you know, what's the point of putting an ad on a jersey? Is someone going to go out and buy insurance based on it? And it's, I think, a very simplistic view on this stuff. You know, I actually think to Wade's point, the brands that are going to associate with these NHL teams are ones that they have a relationship with. So you're not going to be seeing, let's say, an ad on a jersey that you're not going to see a million times elsewhere in the arena. And so that sort of long-standing cultivation, and that's what brands are relying on. I don't think any advertiser is going to think, oh, I'm going to put an ad on a Winnipeg Jets jersey and they're going to go out and buy my product. That's not the intention. It's to get these products into sort of consistent view of the consumer so that when you do make a choice later on, hopefully there's that top of mind awareness. And so, you know, it's helpful. You know, it's going to help with the league's finances and some of these teams' finances. I think if you're thinking of selling a product directly, it's more the indirect effects. So you're putting it into context. And again, we're at a certain point, we're not gonna like visually pick up that they're on these jerseys. So, you know, I think it's a softer sell that sometimes people forget that there's a value for a brand like Dunkin' Donuts to be associated with the Bruins. And if it translates to jersey advertising, you're going to see that relationship continue into multiple parts. So it's not just, they're just trying to shove a product down my throat. It's more subtle than that.
And going back again, whose name's on the building and other stuff. In the case of the Blues, you have the Enterprise on the building, and their away helmets are the Enterprise, or were the previous season. I think it ran still, was on the helmets as well. So and now Stiefel Theater, where you can go watch entertainment that's attached to the Blues Arena, is now on the jerseys. So again, there's a lot of money flying around, and they're probably getting some discounts, but the more you can put your name out, I mean, that seems helpful. The other piece that I'll laugh about this, at least in the Blues case, and I wasn't able to dig on other teams, is when the Blues put a press release out of showing these jerseys, they also announced, and I don't know who the hell is going to do this, you can go buy replicas of this at the arena store with the logo patch on it. I'm sorry, if I'm buying the authentic ones, because you have the two different companies, don't get me started on that crap. But the fact, if I'm paying to get a sponsor patch on, and I know you get them on the NHL ones if you pick up the gamers, but they don't sell the replicas with the sponsor patches on it. Why the hell would the Blues think that's a good idea? I'll be curious if any other teams do that. But when I saw that, I'm like, that's stupid.
Yeah. Well, the Blues, in the team store at the STL Authentics, whenever you get one of those jerseys made, they, the last couple of years, they've had the 5 patches for, Bobby Plager. I think sometimes even those fans want to make them as close to the on ice stuff as possible. I mean, to your point, yeah, I don't think I'd put the patch on my jersey if I were going that route, but some of those, how some fans are, they got to have as close to possible.
I just would want to discount that. If I'm advertising for somebody, you better lower the jersey prices a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jason, yeah. I'm fairly certain the Minnesota Wild have announced that all their jerseys they are currently selling from the Hockey Lodge will have the patch added.
Really?
I was just trying to find that quickly.
Yeah, and I was trying to, some announcements for teams were good and some were not good. And I can see like the Caps in Vegas not doing that because, or at least on kids' jerseys, since they're advertising gambling. That would be funny on the kids' jerseys, however. But it's one of those things that I like I said, I'm a little surprised from the business side of things that more teams didn't jump on it. But again, like Justin, like you said, is the NHL announced they made the most money ever. Well, people have been hungry for hockey the last several years, and the revenue they made with the helmets, now you can bring in and put those patches on. And maybe some teams are scared to do that to maybe scare the fans away, but they more care about the players, I think, than what's on the jersey.
Yeah, and maybe some teams are just waiting to see if there's pushback, and it is interesting to think about. You had mentioned the advertising to kids, having a jersey with a gambling venture. I do think, I think you can make an argument that NHL teams are probably a bit deliberate in their thinking, and I don't think aside from gambling, you're going to see teams having relationships with any brands that might prompt any public criticism. And I think NHL teams are going to play it really, really safe with the brands that they do engage with, simply because of the 4 major sports, I would say the NHL seems to have its most risk averse organizations. And I don't think, they're not going to be like the Dallas Cowboys who just kind of do what they want. I think you're going to see NHL teams be really, really deliberate about their relationship with certain brands, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is a multi-year phase in, as teams just kind of weigh what's happening.
And I don't disagree there at all. It makes sense. You won't see if a state has a big marijuana manufacturing company that sells stuff, you're not going to see a little marijuana leaf on a jersey or those kind of. I think you're right there. So now we're through the call it the business side of this, is what the teams are doing, the ads, things like that. All right, now to the digging more on the collector side of this. Does this affect auctions negatively or sales in general, be it auctions, however the teams sell it? Do you think most collectors are going to care? Again, a lot of stuff online when they announced it was honestly about 50-50. by the post that I saw. But what say you? We'll start with Paul.
There we go. It's, with the patches, as long as they're benign and they're non-controversial companies, for best term, it's not going to impact what I'm willing to spend on a jersey. If Larkin gets 50 goals next year, I would love that jersey. I know someone else is going to have it before me, but I don't care what patch is on it. Having said that, and this is not the direction the league will go, if a jersey was sponsored by Planned Parenthood, I would buy that jersey from that team. If there was a Fox News logo on one, I'm avoiding it. But I also know the league. Well, besides, if it's on a Red Wings jersey, then I have an issue. But in general, if something which I support ends up on there, there's a chance I might want that jersey, even if it's a team I don't collect. I just don't see that happening. I mean, Justin's points on it. They're going to be pretty benign, the patches and the companies which are going to be on there.
Because it's not going to be cheap. I mean, again, we're guessing, but $10 million, $15 million for a season. That's a big check to write.
Oh, yeah.
Wade, we'll go to you.
Sure. Again, in the Blues groups, you saw some people saying, "Oh, I won't." If they don't want to collect them, they can sell me the other ones that they don't want anymore because they're not collecting jerseys. And in the same sense, I look at it and I say it's another layer to the. We're always trying to match jerseys. We're always trying to differentiate years and different things. I mean, let's say the Blues change that patch next year and the Stiefel patch changes in some way. The logo changes. Again, that's another layer of collectability, in my opinion. It's definitely, to what Paul said. Yeah, obviously you're going to, if it's a brand you like, it might drive some people to say, hey, man, I really have to have that jersey with that patch on it. I'm not scared of it. I don't think it changes much for me. As we've all seen, in auctions and trades and sales, it seems like everything's kind of going up right now, despite our economy or whatever's going on in our economy. So in that sense, I can't see a 3-inch patch really affecting the hobby too substantially. I think it's going to be another layer as I feel.
And some of that too is being able, like you said, being able to date patches if things change, stuff like that. Also works with photo matching. Is if you've got some good mark across that sponsor patch, that's going to be something that you're going to notice and is going to be easy to find in photos. Justin.
Yeah, it's interesting we're talking about this tonight. I waited to the point about, especially in the American League, you're able to find loose threads on patches. It does kind of help with I think you called it the collectible aspect of it. I put up a post on my wall a couple days ago. I was wondering, this is a little off topic, but it gets at the concern. I'm wondering about how the IRS and the $600 mark is going to impact the hobby. I am, after posting that the other day and thinking about the state of prices for a lot of things, basic consumer goods, I just think in terms of just the overall cost for some of these jerseys, I would hazard a guess that I think not just because of ads. I think it's going to be a very small part of it, but I do think the hobby is due for some sort of scaling back a little bit. I guess that's I think
economic correction type thing. You think maybe?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And we've seen over the periodically veteran collectors will say, "I'm out. I'm selling everything." And I suspect for that individual who might be new to the hobby, yeah, they might look at an ad and be like, "No, it's just not worth it, given the cost of everything." So I think that market correction, or maybe that hobby correction, even though the prices of certain gamers remain so robust, I think this is going to partially, but not really dramatically feed into. I do worry about what the hobby is going to look like next year and the year after if the prices of basic consumer goods continue to go up. It's hard to afford these things.
Sure. And with the all the online auction platforms, the different texting ones, and where anybody anywhere can get stuff from that particular team, where it used to be very isolated. That's really opened that market up, and for a while it's driven prices up. But I think you're right, is the overall cost of everything. Those are the fun stuff that's easy to cut out.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see, especially when you got another debate of, I'm not a really fan of these ads. Maybe I'll just kind of let it go and see if maybe I can pick up an older jersey or a pre ad jersey of my player, because it may drop or whatever. And Justin, I don't know if you've seen some of the posts or if you belong, I don't even know what all groups you're in, but one of the things I do with our Blues group is I track every jersey auction, put the roster on there, and then what the items sold at. And it's kind of interesting to see the ebb and flow of, and everything so far is still up pretty well. Some guys that I'm surprised to see where they are, but it's continued to trend up. But I am kind of expecting I don't want to say a hard crash, but definitely a dip across the board.
That's just a speculation on my part, but you have to look at it. Guys who can afford these auctions, they're going to keep at it. But I can envision a new collector just saying it's just not worth it. And you see this in the most interesting debates where we see this is in the not game worn group and the authentic group, where the opinions on this really tend to be polarized.
And yeah, it's because again, some of the prices I see for the authentics and different things or the replicas blow my mind, and some of those sell more than like a starter level game jersey, but just because of whose name's on the back or if it was customized or whatnot. And but you're right. I'm in a lot of those groups and watching some of how things go. It's eye opening.
Yeah, the vintage, especially the vintage stuff, the old CCM authentic stuff, the not game worn, but the authentic jerseys, some of those prices, when I see people post them, I'm just like, wow, that's incredible. When you think about it, depending on how it's done, the only thing I've noticed on game worn jerseys, now we're kind of switching topics a little bit, is it seems like some of the lesser players, there's a lot of value buys out there. There's a lot of $300, $400, $500 jerseys out there that, I used to see get picked up pretty quickly. And I think you see those sit a little bit longer, or people are a little less interested in those. It seems like, the upper tier stuff is still just hotter than a firecracker. But, I agree there is some kind of market adjustment that's going to happen at some point, as we continue to move forward with, life kind of changing, goods and service prices changing and all that.
And again, as somebody, if they're going into the store seeing those jerseys, well, I don't want to pay one with a sponsor patch on it. It should be a discount or whatnot. We'll see if those kind of arguments go. But and Justin, I think maybe you're right with this. Is you've got this handful of teams that went out early and said, you know what, we're gonna bite onto this quickly, get our sponsors in it. We have good partnerships with, and every one of these teams, like you said, already had a good relationship with who's ever now on the jersey. Some moved from the helmets to the jerseys. Some had done other things. So it's not new to the companies writing the checks. It's just giving them a better opportunity. And I think some of the other teams may be that didn't do this yet, may be a little shocked to see this revenue early and see the interest. And I think then next year you may see a big explosion.
Well, here, honestly, Doc, you think about this. Some of these teams that have the sponsors that jumped on the helmets maybe earlier are looking at putting it on the jersey, seeing the cost, and deciding if it's a good return financially for their business. I mean, I think, in that case, maybe these teams some of the teams that haven't gotten one yet, maybe are asking too much. They're being very selective, or maybe their sponsors are determining whether or not they feel it's cost effective to spend $10 million a year for their name on a jersey. I think those are questions that we don't have answers to, obviously.
The secrets of the NHL team, stuff that we could be on a fly on a wall for some of those. So I guess, and again, when this was announced, we heard, the sky is falling. It's going to be NASCAR. It's going to be Europe. They're going to see ads on pads and pants and everything else. But the NHL as a whole and teams came out and said, wait, just slow your roll. we're being very protective. We're being very respective because it's the team logo that's important on these jerseys. Yes, we can help generate revenue, but we're being very clean. Like I showed in some of the pictures early on, is they're cut around the wording, so it even kind of helps hide it a little bit more. Like the Stiefel ones and a couple of the other teams, it's not just a square patch. So and again, the NHL's limited what the size is. It's very they're designed to, I want to say, blend in, but be much more subtle. So and again, with the Adidas material in that, I think it'll help add again, add photo matching, add other things. So I don't have an issue with it. And if anybody, I know Paul just finished it before we came on the air here. And Wade, I think you listened to it. Justin, I'm not sure. Did the interview last week with Mike McKenna. I actually asked him about it, and he spent a lot of time in the AHL and really didn't take much of an issue with it. But NHL teams, East Coast Hockey League teams have done it a long time, and it's never, other than their specialty jerseys, which is a whole nother thing, nothing's really gaudy. I've never seen a sponsor patch be just off the wall and draw away from the jersey and the team logo itself.
I do have a question, and I'm staring. I really, the Cuse jersey behind you. You have the sponsor patch on one shoulder. You have I think it's the playoff patch on the other.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious how, if you're looking at someone wearing a captain's letter, I can't think of any AHL jerseys that come off immediately to mind, but you do have the risk of it potentially getting cluttered up there between captain's letters, sponsors logos, 10-year anniversaries.
Stanley Cup patch.
I would love to see an AHL jersey that kind of had that issue with the sponsor logo there.
Yeah, I could say the one behind me is one of McKenna's, and yeah, you're right. It's got the Calder Cup patch on one side, sponsor patch on the other. I'll have to see if I can find one of their team captain if it's just the C's below the Calder Cup patch, and that's something that'll have to be addressed a little bit because I'm trying to picture even a cup patch from the last year, because is the C's always on the left
for most,
and then the cup patch is on the right, I think.
Well, a lot of the cup patches were sometimes on the shoulder too. I think they've done that to accommodate as well.
We'll put it on the back of the neck.
Yeah.
You just see it skate from the back.
Who knows?
And that'll be one of the things, is if any of these teams, the 6 teams that have that make it to the Cup final this year, we'll see what that looks like.
I was just thinking though about the Bruins, because we were talking about them earlier. I think the Providence Bruins actually had a Dunkin' Donut patch. They still might on their jerseys for a while. Oh, I think that's the case actually. So you guys were talking about how, that would probably be a good precursor to how the Boston jersey would look with a Dunkin' Donuts logo on it, because they're pretty similar.
Well, and didn't Wilkes, I might be wrong on this one, but didn't Wilkes-Barre have Highmark patches as well? I mean, Pittsburgh's got them now. I want to say, I might be wrong on this one, but I think I've seen Highmark patches on Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguin jerseys too. So you might see a little bit of that. I hate this term, but it's synergy between a team and its affiliates.
Oh yeah. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm gonna go grab a jersey.
Sure, and what that may be too is they can make deals with the company. Hey, we can give you the advertising on both our minor and NHL team, and here's a special rate you'll get for both. Because the revenue helps across the board for them. I mean, especially the minor league stuff is much tighter. I don't know what kind of revenue the Wilkes-Barre Penguins do, but yeah, if you're able to tout that and make it work together, yep, there's Dunkin' Donuts right there.
Who's the player?
This guy who played goalie for the Blues who won the Stanley Cup, Jordan Bennington.
Justin's like, never heard of him. I'm trying to find the
Paul's got a Michigan t-shirt on, so that's even like, my worst nightmare.
I have not checked in on the Penn State game yet tonight, so do that later.
I'm trying to see if I can get
All right,
what
Justin.
the Penguins. It looks like they actually had a different ad. It was actually on the shoulder, just above the Penguin logo, and I can't see the name of the team or the sponsor. But yeah, I have noticed some of the AHL ones even go, but depending on logos, not throw it on the shoulder instead of on the chest. So maybe some of the NHL teams may do that, or you may see a patch shift come Stanley Cup time.
Sure.
A lot of it, I mean, we're all in uncharted territory here, so we may be all off the map once we get into this. But I think the 6 teams will either push more teams into it, or you may see some fans, some collectors kind of get turned away. Like I said, I've collected minor league stuff. I don't care. It's not gaudy. It's not crazy. It's not Ricky Bobby with the ads everywhere, even on the windshield. It's never going to be that. And many people think, oh, it's got no. The NHL's got too much revenue. Oh, that's a nice looking one.
I believe this is a perfume company on a Spartak Moscow jersey, and yeah, there is a line that hopefully NHL teams don't.
You're not going to see any adult other than the gambling stuff, because gambling's mainstream. It's not one of those taboo subjects anymore. I understand with teams not wanting to travel to states that haven't legalized it. I get that. I take no issue with that. But you're not going to see adult-oriented things, deja vu, strip clubs, those kind of stuff. You're just, even if they had the money to do it, the teams in the NHL are going, no, we don't want that. We're too family-friendly to take it that direction. Minor league teams, you never know, but I don't think you're going to go down the road where you get into just like you said, some dangerous kind of territory. Or they are very protective.
Yeah,
because the fans and the owner, and even the ownership, it's making a final call, but the fans are going to revolt if you start throwing some inappropriate things out there.
Well, and Paul had brought up, Planned Parenthood, and gosh, with the way things are so politicized, a team, if it takes a political stance, especially through this venue, they're going to be hammered, and we see brands, and the landscape is, I do think consumers in general are asking more out of companies to speak out on social issues. I really have a hard time. I know it was kind of brought up as a personal perspective, but gosh, just the way things are with NHL teams, the thought of I just cannot see it happening.
They don't want to alienate anybody. They'd rather take that safe route and just have be it a hospital, be it Dunkin' Donuts, whoever. Nobody's going to get to. They're not going to make anything that's going to alienate anybody. Most likely, anyway.
Unless you don't like Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, just have that'd be, now that would be good if you had one team with Dunkin' Donuts and then one team with either Tim Hortons or Krispy Kreme or something like that going against each other. Ooh, or I just came up with a whole new revenue concept. You put a donut patch on all the refs' jerseys. NHL ought to sell some kind of ad on all the referee jerseys.
Only if Schoenfeld gets part of the cut.
Oh my. Well done.
Again, we're all in uncharted territory. Like I said, we've seen pictures of these once they hit the ice in a matter of weeks. I know a lot of teams are planning on wearing them in the preseason, so we'll get some early looks, and I think once people start seeing them on the ice, I think we're going to get a lot more feedback of what people think. Like I said, I don't take much of an issue with it. I get it from the business side. It's not ugly or anything. I'll continue to buy Blues jerseys. I think, Wade, you will as well. So I think a lot of people, we'll check back go find those old Facebook posts. I'm not buying anymore. And we'll ask them how much they bought in this season.
And to add to that, I feel like, the first, set ones of all these, for at least for me as a Blues collector, the set one home and away and third jersey are things that it's the first jersey with an advertisement on it. I kind of feel like as a completist collector, that's, something I kind of have to have in my collection. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I feel like if you're a completist, the first jersey with an ad is something you want.
That does make sense because like you said, you're that way. I've like the 50th and the 100th patches the NHL and the Blues put out. Everybody went when those jerseys, that first set hit with those patches, people wanted them. It may make them more highly collectible. Justin or Paul, do you see some people or even you yourselves kind of go in that direction once your team gets them?
Well, for the Sharks this year, supposedly they're going with 3 entirely new jersey designs. So that is going to override any sort of ad that's on them.
Sure.
And maybe that's why they're holding off. If they do have a thing, they want to get these out first and make that the center of attention before they get an ad on there.
That is very possible. So it's to me, I mean, having the ad on or not is not going to drive me to buy or not buy the jersey. It's going to be more the player, the wear on the jersey, the stuff I've always looked at.
Sure.
And as a Michigan collector, not being able to get jerseys from the past 3 seasons, I mean, there's other ways that our collecting streaks get broken. So I'm not as worried about purchasing something because it's the first set of ads on it.
Well, it makes me wonder though, and before I really got into gamers, I think, Wade, I think you can appreciate this if memory serves me right. I was really into authentics and getting them just so customized. And I have a couple of AHL Bantams that lack the patch and the sponsor patch, and it kills me. I looked far and wide to find it, to complete it, and I couldn't. I think in terms of gamers, it's not something that will appeal to me, but if I am going to be customizing an MIC jersey, yeah, then I am going to have to track down a patch. And
Sure.
it makes me wonder, the customizing business now is interesting, but will whoever's doing jersey customizations, those shops, are they going to keep sponsor patches on hand, or how that market is going to develop?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a pile of cat patches sitting around my house that I picked up for the Peoria, jerseys. And I think Doc can appreciate that. I found a couple of them, and I bought 4 or 5 of them, and I have them just in case I ever want to customize, a Rivs jersey. They're here in case I need them.
And Justin, I know in case of the Blues, at least in their little FAQ about these is because it said part of their Q&A, can I purchase a replica jersey with the Stiefel branding? Replica jerseys will not include the Stiefel logo, but you can purchase a patch at STL Authentics. Be heat pressed on. Sewing will take 6 to 8 weeks. So at least in case of the Blues, you'll be able to buy them right from their store and then either on their own or buy it with the jersey and have it get put on. So I'm going to lean toward teams all doing that, but some teams may go, you know what? These are only for these. And then if we sell the replicas, they're only going to be attached to jersey. You can't get them loose.
Well, I mean, the big question then, again, is the one that the Blues are going to sell in that team store going to be the same quality or the same stitching or looking identical to the one that's on the jersey? Because that's what the guys that customize and do the Made in Canada's die for. It has to be perfect.
Yep.
And then if you're one of those teams, one of those sponsors looking to put your ad on the game jerseys, I think you'd almost have to insist that the teams at least make it available to the fans because they want to see those in the stands too, you'd hope, right?
Basically free advertising.
Absolutely.
And this gets, I'm actually more upset about the switch away from Adidas. I know Adidas has had its detractors and its fans. I love the way Adidas gamers hold their wear. I'm a little bit more, I'm more concerned about who's going to replace Adidas than I am, I guess, what the ad is going to look like on.
No, and that's what, 2 seasons from now, or after not this season, after the next one. I'm trying to remember to get my dates right.
It's after next year. That's another good podcast topic we could do. I'm sure we could do an hour on that.
or two. Biggest, just like Justin said though, and I don't want to dive too deep into it now, but still, who the hell is it going to be? We there can it will it be Under Armour? Will it be? I mean, there's not a ton of other jersey companies out there that come to my mind.
CCM is owned by. I kind of did some work on this. I mean, Nike obviously does international jerseys. There's, I mean, who's going to step up? Does Fanatics has so much money? Do they just buy up somebody that has the ability to produce an NHL quality jersey?
God, I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic for another time. But that's a company that, I mean, heck, they decided they wanted to make their own baseball cards, so they bought Topps for. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that's a company that can kind of do whatever they want. So suddenly, are we going to have Fanatics game jerseys?
And how does that impact NHL teams? Because if there's a new contract with the league, I'm assuming that revenue has to be shared with teams. And does that necessarily, if teams are getting a boost from the eventual shift to a new producer, and I don't know this, but it certainly makes you wonder if that is going to be enough to kind of get them through and not have them adopt. I'm curious, at what point are we going to see, and will we see all 32 teams with spots on their jerseys?
I think within, I'm going to say 4 seasons, you have everybody, because that's a big revenue to not take a chunk of. You can get $10 to $15 million a year in jerseys, and then make a deal for the helmets for another 10 or so million. That's a nice amount of money coming in the door.
I think
I'll take the under on that one.
Yeah,
I think you'll get to 30 teams at relatively quickly. There might be 1 or 2 holdouts, but I would not be surprised if all 32 buy in very quickly. Revenue, plain and simple.
Money drives everything. It drives our hobby to be able to buy these wonderful jerseys. It drives the team to put the things on the ice. And I will say, not to go down other random roads too much, we were talking about the jersey changing that. I think that at least the prime green from this past season, I think those show more wear and more repairs than the previous iterations of the Adidas jerseys, at least the ones that I've seen. And I don't know how many you guys have had through your hands. Wade, I know you've got some different ones, but they seem to show a lot more, seen a lot more repairs in the arms and a lot more holes in them as well.
Seems like the Adidas jerseys have held up better than previous generations, but I do agree that the prime green definitely has more wear than the previous generation of whatever cloth they were using. I would agree with that.
and that's a fairly substantial vocal part of the gamer hobby, that they like more wear the better, right? So
well, and we can thank HD television for the changing of jerseys more frequently and all that stuff. Remember in the 90s and that, when you didn't have the good quality TV and they beat the hell out of those, and now that high definition, it's got to look good. So some teams still do that, but not near as much. Gentlemen, any final thoughts? Wade, start with you.
No, thank you for having me. It was a good time. I look forward to the next time I'm invited on. Thanks for the good banter, gentlemen. Appreciate you.
Justin, any final thoughts?
no, it's been a really good discussion, and like I said, I'm kind of a moderate on this. I know it'll change how we initially view, when we look at them, it'll kind of force us to think a little bit, but I don't think it's a lot to be too upset about. And I think there are going to be other changes in the hobby that have a more lasting effect than these ads.
Paul.
Thank you, Jason, for having me back on again. Greatly appreciate it. Quick question for you. We've been looking at these wonderful jerseys behind you. Quickly, show me the logo on the Germany jersey. Can you find it?
Yes.
Yes, and this is what we were worried about earlier with the NHL jerseys. It's thank you, but
yeah, no, that's a perfect callback to that, though. You're right, but there are some teams you go looking and you really do wonder what the hell it is, where it's at, and yeah. But no, we're never. I guess you can truly say never, but you're never going to get the kind of money flying around where they start looking like that in the NHL. Look how long. I mean, we're next to last in ads for going on jerseys, and we're being very particular. So I don't think we'll ever get to this point. Gentlemen, another fantastic show in the books. We'll have another next week. Will be a little bit interesting. I've got to get it out on. I guess next week's my good one, and then a week after that, I go to Blues Fantasy Camp for 3 days. So I'm gonna have to bang out a quick show before I go play hockey and drink with former Blues players for 3 days. So. We'll talk about that a little bit when I return. So I'll come back with my own game jersey in a handful of weeks. Gentlemen, again, thank you, and we'll see you all soon. It is the Dirty Laundry Game Worn Hockey Podcast. Also, logo coming soon. It is almost done. Gentlemen, have a fantastic evening.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.